The sun hung low over the circuit, casting a golden glow over the grandstands. The air was thick with the scent of burning rubber, race fuel, and anticipation. It was the final round of the national championship, one last race to decide who would take the title. Jake Turner stood in his racing leathers, staring at his Kawasaki ZX-10R. His crew moved around him in a blur, making last-minute adjustments, but he barely noticed. His mind was elsewhere, on the track, on the turns he had memorized, on the only thing that mattered today: victory. Across the paddock, Alex Moreno was stretching, loosening his shoulders, his red and black leathers gleaming under the pit lane lights. He was the reigning champion, the man to beat. They had battled all season, trading wins, pushing each other to the absolute limit. Now they were tied in points. This race was everything. Jake ran a gloved hand through his helmet's visor, exhaling slowly. His stomach churned, not with fear, but with adrenaline. He had dreamt of this moment since he first twisted a throttle as a kid. Years of sacrifice, brutal training, near misses, and podium finishes had led to this. "Turner, you good?" His crew chief, Mark, clapped him on the shoulder. "Yeah," Jake said, though his heart pounded like a piston in his chest. Mark crouched beside him, speaking low. "Stick to the plan. Ride smart. If you take risks, make sure they count." Jake nodded, but deep down, he knew the truth. Today, there was no room for playing it safe. If he didn't push harder than ever before, he wasn't going to win. A roar from the stands signaled the support race had just finished. It was time. The call came over the speakers. Riders to the grid. Jake threw a leg over his bike, flicked down his visor, and twisted the throttle. The ZX-10R growled in response, eager for the battle ahead. He rolled out of the garage, joining the other riders as they weaved through the pit lane toward the track. As he rode toward the grid, the tension thickened. Thousands of fans packed the stands, waving flags, shouting names. The energy was electric. The championship was about to be decided, and everyone knew it. He pulled into his starting position, second on the grid, right beside Alex. The two locked eyes for a split second. No words, no nods, just an unspoken understanding. This is it. The officials walked off the track. The final checks were done. Jake adjusted his gloves one last time. His breathing slowed. His mind emptied. The lights went red. Engines screamed. Green. Jake launched forward, his front wheel barely staying down as he rocketed into the first corner. Alex was right beside him, their bikes nearly touching as they battled for position. Lap after lap, they fought like warriors. The rest of the original story continues from here. Disqualified. The tension in the air was thick as Jake Turner rolled his Kawasaki ZX-10R onto the starting grid. This was the biggest race of his career, the final round of the national championship. He was tied in points with his rival, Alex Moreno. Whoever won today would take the title. The lights went red, engines screamed, green. Jake launched forward, his front wheel barely staying down as he rocketed into the first corner. Alex was right beside him, their bikes nearly touching as they battled for position. Lap after lap, they fought like warriors. Every overtake was inches away from disaster, their tires leaving black streaks on the asphalt. By the final lap, Jake was in second, just behind Alex. Then came the last turn. Jake saw his chance. Alex was taking a defensive line, covering the inside. But Jake was desperate, too desperate. Instead of braking properly, he dove in too fast, squeezing between Alex and the curb. For a moment, it seemed like he might pull it off. Then, contact. Their bikes collided. Alex's rear tire lifted, sending him into a wobble before he high-sided, flipping through the air. Jake barely kept control, skidding wide but staying upright. The crowd gasped. The checkered flag waved. Jake crossed the line first. He raised his arms in victory until he looked back. Alex was in the gravel, his bike wrecked, marshals rushing toward him. Then he saw the pit wall. His team wasn't celebrating. They were silent. Minutes later, the decision came. Jake was disqualified. The officials ruled his move reckless. Alex, though bruised, was fine, but he was declared the winner based on race regulations. Jake sat alone in the paddock, staring at his gloves. He had pushed too hard. He had let the hunger to win cloud his judgment. Victory had been within reach. But now, all he could think about was what it cost him.